Can one law really work for the complex mix of people in India? That's what we're going to talk about when discussing the Uniform Civil Code, or UCC. This idea suggests replacing the personal laws, which are based on the beliefs and traditions of each major religion in India, with one set of laws for everyone. Why? The aim is to make the country's laws simpler and to make sure all citizens, no matter their religion or culture, are treated equally under law. Looking at the history of UC, it started with the directive principles of state policy in the Indian Constitution. Specifically, Article 44 supports a UCC. However, it's important to remember that these principles are more like recommendations than compulsory laws. They are meant to create fair. The UCC tries to find a middle ground between two different. One is the Gandhian principles reflected in the directive principles, which support a uniform civil code. The other is the constitutional duty to respect religious freedom, which is stated in Article 14. This disagreement within the Constitution is at the heart of the UCC debate. The idea of a UCC isn't new. It has been continually supported by many and political reform movements. Those in favor of it say it would promote equality and secularism, but those against it argue that it could interfere with religious freedom and cultural traditions. So, what would the UCC mean for a country as diverse as India? The situation gets more complex here. India is a combination of many different religions, cultures, and traditions. So, a key question is, can one law really meet the needs and respect the feelings of all these different groups? This is the main point of the UCC debate. It's not just about making the laws the same. It's a battle between the old and the new, the different and the same, and religious freedom and social justice. Therefore, the Uniform Civil Code isn't just a law, it's an ongoing discussion about tradition versus modernity, diversity versus unity, and religious freedom versus social. The term Uniform Civil Code, or UCC, has a big history in India. It's been around as long as the Indian Constitution. If we look back, we can see the UCC was created when the Indian Constitution was being made. The people who made the Constitution wanted the UCC to help make everyone in the diverse country of India equal and to promote secularism, or the separation of religion from the state. So they included the UCC in the directive principles of state policy, which are the guidelines for how the country should be governed. The idea of a UCC was seen as a big move towards reducing social discrimination and making everyone united. But because it's not legally enforceable, meaning the government can try to achieve it but doesn't have to, it's mostly been a concept rather than a reality. The UCC has always been a topic of hot debate and constant discussion. Important court cases related to the UCC have really shaped its path. One example is the famous Shah Bano case from 1985, which made the conflict between personal laws and the idea of a UCC very clear. The case was about a Muslim woman who asked the courts for financial support from her divorced husband. The Supreme Court ruled in her favor, which upset orthodox Muslim groups who said the decision went against Islamic personal law. This case showed the urgent need for a UCC to make sure all citizens have equal rights no matter their religion. It made the debate about the UCC even bigger and highlighted the conflict between personal laws and the idea of a UCC. But the path towards a UCC hasn't been easy. The debate been split, with some people arguing for equality and secularism, and others saying religious freedoms and cultural practices are important. Up to now, the UCC is still a directive principle. Even though many political and social reform movements want a UCC, the government has said they can't make Parliament create a law for a UCC. They say things like religious and cultural diversity, political issues, and needing agreement from different communities are the reasons for this. In conclusion, the story of the UCC has been full of ups and downs, and there's still a lot of debate about it. As we look closer at this issue, it's clear that discussions about the UCC need to find a balance between tradition and modernity. Every coin has two sides, and so does the debate on the Uniform Civil Code. Let's dive deep into it, shall we? Supporters of the Uniform Civil Code argue that it's a big step towards equality and secularism in the country. They believe that having one law for all citizens, no matter their religion or culture, would guarantee that everyone is equal under the law. They also say that a uniform civil code would protect the rights of marginalized communities, especially women, who often suffer under personal laws. To understand this better, click on the link for a more detailed explanation of the benefits of Uniform Civil Code. But it's not all positive. Those who oppose the Uniform Civil Code express their worries as well. They argue that having a single law for everyone might interfere with the religious freedom and cultural practices of the country's diverse people. India is a country rich in cultural heritage and diversity with many different religions, each with its own unique customs and traditions. Critics are worried that a uniform civil code might harm this diversity and affect the rights of religious and cultural minorities. They also fear the possible misuse of a uniform civil code. Without strong checks and balances, they worry that this law could be used to mistreat minority groups and force the majority's views on everyone. For a better understanding of these potential drawbacks, check out the link provided. Then, there's the issue of how practical it would be. India is a highly diverse country and its many personal laws are complicated. To put a uniform civil code into practice would be a huge job. It would need a deep understanding of the details of each religion and agreement from all communities, which is easier said than done. So, there are two sides to the Uniform Civil Code debate. On one hand, there's the promise of equality and secularism, and on the other hand, the concern about interfering with religious freedom and practices. The Uniform Civil Code debate is about finding a balance between old customs and new ideas. As we try to find a solution that respects individual freedom and the common good, the debate keeps on changing. Let's delve into how the Uniform Civil Code could significantly impact women's lives. From a feminist perspective, the UCC could be seen as a tool for women's empowerment and social progress. It could potentially address the gender bias that exists in many personal laws, making them more equitable and just. For instance, laws related to marriage, divorce, inheritance, and adoption often discriminate against women. A uniform civil code could replace these with a single gender-neutral law that treats everyone equally regardless of their gender. However, it's not all rosy. Some women's rights activists express concerns about the implementation of the UCC. They fear that the UCC might end up being a tool to impose the majority's patriarchal norms on all women, rather than being a tool for equality. They argue that without a deep understanding of the nuances of different cultural traditions and a commitment to gender justice, the UCC could end up harming women's rights instead of promoting them. In essence, the Uniform Civil Code, if implemented with care and sensitivity, could be a game changer for women's rights in India. However, it requires careful planning and an inclusive conversation that respects diversity and promotes equality. The Uniform Civil Code might be a step towards a more fair and inclusive society, but it's not without its challenges. It's a complex issue that needs to be handled with care. The journey towards a Uniform Civil Code (UCC) in India is not easy. As we look into the problems, we see many roadblocks. Some of these roadblocks come from India's rich and diverse mix of religions, cultures, and customs. Each group has its own set of rules for marriage, divorce, inheritance, and adoption. So, bringing all these rules together under one code is tough. Next, politics also plays a role. The UCC has been hot with different political parties having different views. Some view it as a way to promote equality, others see it as a threat to religious freedoms and cultural traditions. This difference in views makes it hard to agree on the UCC. Another big hurdle is getting to agree. If we want to put a UCC in place, all communities must be on board. But different beliefs and practices make this hard. Many fear they will lose their uniqueness and traditions, so they resist the change. There are also legal challenges. The laws related to UCC are not legally enforceable. The job of making a law for a UCC falls on the parliament, and the courts cannot force them to do it. This makes things even more complicated. But these problems can be overcome. They require careful planning that respects diversity, promotes equality, and finds a balance between old and new. It needs a conversation that includes everyone and respects all views. The journey towards a UCC is long and filled with obstacles, but it's worth the effort as it can lead to a more fair and inclusive society. What happens if we don't have a uniform civil code? Are there other ways to improve our society? Many people are thinking about this question. The Uniform Civil Code, or UCC, has caused many discussions, but it's not the only way to move forward. There are other ways to build a fair and diverse society. One way is to have a mindset that includes everyone's needs and traditions. This means not having the same rules for everyone. Instead, we should have a legal system that respects and protects different customs and beliefs. This could involve having different civil codes for different communities. These codes could be created with the help of community leaders, legal experts, and the public. Another way could be to make our existing laws better. Laws that support equality and justice. For example, we could strengthen laws that protect against unfair treatment, protect human rights, and provide equal opportunities for all, no matter their religion or culture. Also, we can improve our society through education and awareness. By teaching understanding and respect for different cultures and religions, we can reduce conflicts and create a more united society. We could invest more in getting different communities to talk and agree with each other. This could involve regular community meetings, interfaith dialogues, and other activities that encourage understanding and teamwork. These alternatives have their challenges. They need careful thought, planning, and action, but they offer a way to balance the need for uniformity with the importance of diversity and religion. So, let's not limit ourselves one solution. Let's look at these alternatives and more, with an open mind and a desire to improve society. Other alternatives to Uniform Civil Code could be a bridge between tradition and modernity, diversity and unity, religious freedom and social justice. Now let's look at what the Indian Supreme Court thinks about the Uniform Civil Code, or UCC for short. The top court has often said that it supports the UCC because it sees it as a good way to treat women fairly. The court has suggested many times that we should use the UCC. One famous case that shows this is the Shah Bano case in 1985. In this case, the court said that we really need a UCC. They argued that a common law would help India be truly secular and protect women's rights. In the Sarala Mudgal case in 1995, the court once again supported the UCC. They said that it would help bring the country together and treat women fairly. The Supreme Court's support of the UCC has pushed lawmakers to take action. The court has often asked the parliament to start a UCC to clear up confusion about personal laws and make sure everyone has the same rights, no matter what their religion is. These court cases have had a big impact on how people talk about the UCC. They have shown that the UCC can be used to make sure women are treated fairly. This has made more people pay attention to the issue. In the light of these court cases, people see the court's support of the UCC as a call to action. The court has shown the potential benefits of a uniform civil code. At the same time, it has said that we need to think carefully and plan well before we implement it. The top court has also said that it's important to think about the reality of life in India, where there are many different cultural and religious practices. Any law that wants to make things the same for everyone should not ignore the cultural rights of different communities. So, as we try to understand this complex issue, what the Supreme Court says will continue to be an important part of the discussion. Its decisions and comments guide us and show us the way towards a fairer